listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me, non-judgmental talk about infidelity with Dr. Marie Murphy. If you're looking for new perspectives on complicated relationship issues, you've come to the right place.
Days go by, they're crawling by.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Marie Murphy. I'm a relationship coach, and I help people who are engaging in anything they think counts as infidelity to deal with their feelings, clarify what they want, and make decisions about what they're going to do. No shame, no blame, no judgments. If you'd like my help sorting out your infidelity situation, you can schedule an introductory coaching session with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com. Today, I am welcoming Melissa Hite back to the podcast. Melissa and I recorded an episode about a year ago about sexuality, religion, and shame. It was a great conversation. You should totally check it out. Melissa is the founder of Higher Sex Education, where she does one-on-one coaching and offers online courses. She's a sexual spiritual advisor, which means that she works holistically with clients to integrate all parts of themselves in practical ways. She is a wealth of wisdom from a unique blend of life experience and academic education. Not only is she certified as a holistic sex educator, through the Institute of Sexual Education and Enlightenment, she's triple certified as a pole fitness instructor, has 15 years of massage therapy experience, specializing in sports therapy and lymphatic therapy. And she also spent 10 years working in Nevada's legal brothel industry. You can learn more about Melissa and her work through her website, highersexeducation.com. Melissa and I are going to be talking about boundaries today. And we're not going to necessarily make all of the connections between boundaries and infidelity super explicit, but boundaries are important to human existence and human relationships, no matter whether or not you're engaging in infidelity. So this is important no matter what. So listen up, everyone. Melissa, thank you so much for joining me again. It's great to have you here.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me back on.
My pleasure. So I thought it would be cool to start off by talking about common misconceptions about boundaries, people's common ideas about what boundaries are that aren't quite how we would define them, since there are so many interesting notions of what boundaries mean out there. What are some of the common ideas that you hear that you might want to adjust?
Oh my, that's a large question. Yeah. I often think to myself, wow, like we don't even understand what boundaries are. We're not even getting it. I hear people say like, it's good to have boundaries. And I don't think people understand that we all have boundaries. It's good to understand your boundaries. It's good to know them, to understand them and know how to implement them in your world. But we all have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
No one is void of having boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's just one of them. That's just one of the misconceptions that comes to me first, is not even knowing that we have boundaries, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just not understanding what they are.
Yeah. What are some of the common misunderstandings of what boundaries mean that you hear?
I think we often think obviously often think that boundaries are how we control other people.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest, and I think one of the most unhealthy things is it's how we control and manipulate other people.
Yeah, totally. What I see that as often is people think that a boundary is something that they tell someone else not to do so that they can feel okay.
Yeah. I'm cringing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, I totally empathize with the notion that this might work and might be a good idea, because so many of us believe, consciously or unconsciously, that in order for us to feel okay, we have to control the external world, including but not limited to other people's behavior.
Right, exactly. We'll get into this, I'm sure. I want to talk about the difference between internal and external boundaries. A quote from my course, a quote that I have posted on social media and whatnot that I sent you, is that if we don't yet understand our internal boundaries and we try to implement boundaries in the external world, We're just trying to control and manipulate our environment to feel more comfortable.
Yeah. Well, let's get right into that. Why don't
Yeah.
you tell us how you see the distinction between
Yeah.
internal and external boundaries?
So most boundary work that I see in the world, in the books that I see, in the different whatever, in the boundaries is a real big buzzword right now. There's a lot going on around boundaries. And it's great. We need
Yeah.
to talk about it more.
Yeah.
And I see it very externalized, how you communicate with other people, how you interact with other people. And I think we're really missing the core fundament of boundaries, which is the internal portion, which is what is true to me. What is my truth? How do I honor myself? What does self-love look like? These kind of things. So our internal boundaries is our personal truth. Our external boundaries, ideally, is how we implement that truth in our environment, in our world.
So like how we communicate that to other
Sure.
people.
Yeah.
Sure. How we enforce our boundaries. Yeah.
Or just the knowing of it changes our behavior.
Yes, absolutely. 100% agree.
Right. If I
100%
know
agree.
that I'm overwhelmed in a certain environment, I just don't go into that environment. I do what I need to do to take care of myself.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. I like to define boundaries as deciding what's okay with us and not okay with us, and deciding what we're going to do about that, which includes deciding what we're going to do if somebody does something that's not okay with us.
Yes. And I have a little pushback.
Yeah, let's hear
And
it.
I have a little pushback for you. So I think the decision part comes with the external boundaries and how they're implemented. I really feel like most all, if not all of the internal aspect of boundaries is not up to us. I feel like it's not our decision, and stay with me. I know
I get
this
it.
is a hard one.
I get it.
I think they just are. I think our boundaries just are what they are inside of ourselves. And then we decide what we do with it. An example that I like to use is as simple as we can get, as simple as we can pare it down. Ask yourself right now, everybody listening, ask yourself right now, would you like a drink of water? And then listen to your body signals. We'll get more into this as we talk about the body signals and how important they are. But would you like a drink of water? Your body gives you a message, clear yes or no, typically of you're thirsty or you feel hydrated, something along either of those lines. You don't really have a say in what your body tells you. Your body tells you you're thirsty, or your body doesn't tell you you're thirsty. The decision comes with what you do with that personal truth in that moment.
Agree.
So I think that translates in, do I want to have sex with this person right now? My body gives me open, warm, loving, uprising, excited energy, or closed, constricted, cringy, disgust, other kinds of energy. My body tells me what's true for me in that moment, and then I decide what I do with it. I decide if I want to take a drink of water now, or if I am thirsty and I'm going to not take a drink of water now.
Right. Definitely. And I completely agree. And the thing that I see a lot of though, is people getting stuck on the decision part, that I have this sense of what's right for me. What do I do with it?
Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why I emphasize that. But that's not to say that I don't see the importance of recognizing that some of our knowledge about what's right for us, or what we want in any given moment, or what's not okay for us in any given moment, arises from body knowledge. Absolutely. And that just is.
It just is. Exactly. It just is. And you decide what you do with that or not.
Right. Now, the other piece of this that I have to stress is that a lot of our body sensations arise from our thinking. And some of this is conscious and some of this isn't. Like, this situation is okay with me. I like this. I don't like that. I don't feel safe here. I do feel safe here. This arises from our thinking. And to a great extent, we can get a handle on that stuff and decide, what am I seeing here? Right. And sometimes this information just arises without us knowing what we're thinking that created the sensations in the body. Right. But either way, whether you're working at the level of your thinking or at the level of your feelings as physical experiences, it's your truth to heed.
I think all of that is information that's necessary, what your thoughts are on the matter and what your feelings are on the matter. I think we often negate what our body's vote is.
Definitely.
And we need to really make sure our body's vote, I feel, is a lot more clear and accurate than our mind. Our mind makes up stuff all the time. We have all
Totally.
sorts of cognitive biases.
Yeah.
So I like to give my body's vote paramount.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
the
the
body
number
doesn't
one vote.
lie.
No, exactly. The body doesn't lie. The mind lies all the time.
Yeah.
But the head, keeps us on track and keeps us aligned with our goals and all sorts of other things. So we need all of it, but we need to not negate what our body is telling us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Just to add to that, I mean, folks who have been listening to me talk for any length of time know that, if we're thinking in a habitual way that isn't serving us, we're going to feel like shit. And that is something we need to pay attention to.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that what we're thinking is true.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to honor what our body's telling us. But sometimes what we do is, like, say we think this person is treating me badly over and over and over and over again, right? We're going to feel terrible. Of course, we're going to feel terrible. But the fact that we feel terrible doesn't mean that the point we need to heed is this person is treating me badly.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Doesn't mean that that's true. It means that we need
Right.
to do something about what we're thinking about this situation so that we can take a different kind of action
Right.
instead of just sitting there and feeling like shit all the time because we think someone is treating us badly.
Right. And the reverse of that is our bodies feeling sick all the time when we're around this person, and we're like scared and we're nauseous and we're tight and all these things are coming up, and we tell ourselves that they're good for us and that they're safe and that this is a good situation, when your body is clearly telling you, no, this is not a good situation for you.
Right. Absolutely. I think, so many of us are very, I was going to say divorced, maybe separated is the better word from what's going on in our bodies. We engage in the world as if everything happens in our brain space, in our mental space. And we don't use our body as a mind of its own. And it's, I know you quoted something on social media from Body Mind recently, which is an awesome book that everybody should read. It's called Body Mind by Ken Dickwald. And I can't spell Dickwald off the top of my head for the life of me, but there is a Y in there.
Dicchwald. I'm going to guess. It's a great book from the 70s, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's on my bookshelf. I'm going to read it.
Great.
Yeah. Dicchwald. And it's totally from the 70s. And it's
a great book.
It's awesome. Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. I'm glad that you liked that one. Yeah. I love that book. Yeah. I quote it several times in the boundary course that I have online.
Cool.
There's a whole section on honoring your body. There's a whole section on listening to your body's messages and how often we negate that, how important it is to heed that.
Yeah.
And how separate we are, how divorced we are from the body's messages.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So the general exhortation I have for folks is, like, begin to listen to what your body is telling you. How you interpret the messages is a whole other thing, but knowing that the feelings you feel matter, the sensations you experience when a situation is happening really matter.
Right.
And there's a tool that I used to use with clients more often than I do now called the body compass. Right. And that's really about leaning into what your body is feeling to get clear on what you're thinking about a particular situation, what you want to do with any particular situation.
Right. Yeah. I focus mostly on the internal aspect of it because I feel like that's the biggest missing piece. And I feel like you said, we are so divorced from our bodies, and we all need work on this redirecting, like back to the body, back to yourself, back to your core, back to your heart. What is your truth here?
Right.
Because we're so inundated with what we think we should do and what society says we should do and what our partner would be happy with and all sorts of outside messages. And we don't it gets drowned out, the inside messages.
Absolutely. 100%. And a common thing that I see, maybe you do too, is that so many of us have essentially learned how to survive by trying to figure out what other people expect of us and trying to do that.
Right. And then why are we lost in our lives and sad and confused and depressed? And, I think universally we're all wanting a level of authenticity, to be true to ourselves. And we can't do that by pleasing others.
Right. And ironically, we want authenticity, we want connection, but we think, again, intentionally or unintentionally, consciously or subconsciously, that the way we get the connection is by compromising our authenticity. But that's not how we get it. We get it by cultivating our authenticity, right?
Which is easier said than done.
Absolutely.
You are bushwhacking. You are paving your own path the entire way because it's not built for you. You build your own path.
Right. Right.
So it is a lot easier said than done.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up because sometimes when I talk to people about this, they're like, but it's hard.
Yes.
And I'm like, number one, difficult and easy are not absolute truths. They're the product of your thinking. But if we're going to acknowledge that difficult and easy could be things, then yes, it is hard.
Right. Right. Exactly. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
What's really hard is living a life that doesn't fit you.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah.
Really hard is to fit into that.
Yeah.
That's really hard.
Yeah. Right. It may seem easier in the short term though, and bless our hearts for thinking that it is. It may seem safer in the short term. It may seem more feasible in the short term, but in the long run, it's a motherfucker. It's a killer, literally. Right. Yeah. Literally and figuratively.
Right.
Okay. I kind of lost the thread here. I know we started with something.
Yeah. What are boundaries and why are they important?
Yeah.
We're on what are boundaries and the internal and external aspects of them and why are they important?
Yeah.
To live an authentic life, to live your truth, to be happy, to be at peace with who you are in the world.
Yeah.
And to navigate your true authentic self in the world with other people.
I would underscore that last part. Totally.
Easier
if we want to have, say that again.
Again, easier said than done.
Yeah, absolutely easier said than done. But I just want to underscore, since I'm mostly talking with people about their relationships, we think sometimes that we have to do what the other person wants us to do in order to have the relationship that we want. But we really have to learn how to honor what's right for us in order to have the relationships that we want.
Right. Because if you're not straight with you, if you're not integrated and true with who you are, your external environment is going to communicate that left and right with all of your relationships, intimate, professional, otherwise.
Right. Right.
They're going to be distorted and frustrating and dramatic and all sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And we may have the relationships, quote unquote. We may be married to someone or be ostensibly officially in a relationship with someone. So we may have it and we may think that that's a win. But if that's built on us not being true to ourselves and perhaps our partner not being true to themselves, then what do we really have?
That's a great question.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great question. I love that.
Yeah, I see a lot of different answers. I mean, we have this kind of tormented thing that we think is so important, but yet when we're at odds with ourselves, we're not really connecting with the other person in the way that we want to, because how could we? Because we're not aligned with ourselves in the way that we need to be.
Exactly. Yep. That's why my work is all about your relationship with yourself. That's the whole groundwork of what I do.
Yeah.
Where are you with you? Who are you with you?
Yeah.
Where are you out of alignment with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything, I feel like.
Yeah. Right. It really is the foundation of everything for sure.
Yeah.
Let's try this. Let's see if maybe we can each share an example of what it looks like specifically when we're out of alignment with ourselves and therefore we have a hard time setting boundaries internally and externally.
Oh, yeah. It's so big because it can show up anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah.
So when we're out of alignment with ourselves, one example would be when we're not true with who we are and what we want sexually. And we will do things for our partners because that's what they want, or that's what we think they want.
Yeah.
Or that's what society has told us that is sexy, or that's the gender role that I'm supposed to be in. So we will do something that I don't really feel okay with that, but that's what a good woman does, or that's what a manly man would do, or any of these stories. And it just kind of slowly, or not slowly, just picks away at our personal integrity and who we are. If we know that something doesn't feel good for us and we negate that, it does affect our sense of self and our relationship with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you work with people who are trying to figure out what's okay with them sexually and or not, or what they love sexually or not?
Yeah.
Right.
Bringing them back to themselves and those body signals.
Yeah.
What do you feel like when you kiss them? What happens? Do you retract and pull away? Does that feel open and warm and like you lean into it? You want more of that? These kind of things. We'll keep it PG in that way. But yeah,
You don't have to keep it PG.
returning people back to themselves and to the body sensations. What do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And then why? And then if it comes up like, I don't like it, I don't feel good when I do that. Tell me what the story is. Tell me why you feel like you should be doing something that doesn't feel good to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think particularly women or those raised in female gender roles do this really big with allowing whatever to happen to their body.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever their partner wants, they just go with it. This fawning, this fear responsive fawning or freezing, and just placating to what their partner wants or needs.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't ever even get in touch. It doesn't even cross their mind. What would I want or need?
Right.
What would feel good to me in this situation?
Right.
It's so much more performance and how can I please and how can I be there? How can I be a good lover? How can I be a sexy person?
Right.
Not how can I feel sexy?
Right.
Not how can I experience my sexuality?
Right. 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 For sure. For sure. Something I see a lot of is people believing that because they committed to someone, and often this is in the context of marriage, but not necessarily, because I committed to this person, I have to stay with them. And that means that I have to put up with anything that's going on within the context of this relationship that I don't like.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's a double whammy at least, right?
Yep.
I have to stay with this person, and the behaviors that I'm not okay with, I have to put up with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say this, like a lot of the time, number one, the belief that you have to stay with someone is optional, right?
Sure.
You don't have to stay with someone.
Right.
Ever.
Mm-hmm.
That is on you to adjust your thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of, how the other person is behaving, you have options there too. A lot of the time we start to focus on what we dislike about another person's behavior, and it becomes all about them and not about us. Right. And that's a one-way ticket to being miserable. But there's also the component of having choices about what is okay with you and not okay with you, and how you communicate that to people and how you engage in dynamics you dislike in the relationship.
Right.
Right.
Or if you engage in dynamics, you can choose to also not engage.
Yeah.
That's an option at times.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be like, I'm just not going to get into this, right? I'm not going to have this argument with you again. Sometimes people tell me, oh, so-and-so always wants to fight about this. And the question that I have is, what are you doing when they want to fight about whatever it is? Right.
I love what you did. Sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I love what you just said about trying to control other people's behavior being a one-way ticket to being miserable. It absolutely is. That comes into ultimatums. That gets into what ultimatums look like.
Yeah.
Trying to control someone else's behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. And we said this at the beginning, but I'm going to say it again because this bears repeating a million times. We think that we need other people to do certain things in order for us to feel okay.
Yes.
But that's not how it works.
It doesn't. At some point in our healing journey, I think, hopefully for everybody at some point in their lives, I think we get to this point where we realize controlling other people and their behaviors and their actions and anything is not going to work. And all we have control of is ourselves.
Right. Yeah. Here's what I want to add to that. It can get really sneaky though, because we have this whole shared set of understandings. And again, this is the general we have this whole shared set of understandings. And there are many books and experts and programs out there that feed into this, that suggest that there are healthy behaviors and unhealthy behaviors and toxic relationship dynamics and, this is good and this is bad. And if somebody else does this bad thing, then they should know that they're wrong and you should get to tell them that they're wrong and blah, 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 blah. Right. So that I think has this generalized effect of reinforcing our notions that, if some people do certain things and we have every right to feel wronged or we have every right to feel victimized and they're doing something that's traumatizing us and they have the power to make us feel bad. Right? This stuff is so seductive. It sounds really good.
And may or may not be true at all in your relationship and your dynamics.
That is absolutely.
Right.
That is true for sure. But even if you decide this person is doing something that I really don't like, it ain't helping you at all to believe that they're victimizing you.
Gotcha.
Because that takes all of your power away.
Right.
Right.
Just giving that all to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's use this as an example, actually.
Okay.
What happens when, we're in a situation that we don't like, right? I want to hear this in your words and I'll say it in my words too.
What happens is we get to return to our bodies and hear what it's telling us. And then we make a decision to engage in one way, to engage in another way, to walk away entirely, to whatever we choose to do. But we get to be at choice. The catalyst, the point is choice. We are at choice with what we do there.
Right.
We are not, like you were saying, just victimized. This person's ranting and raving and yelling, and we can yell back. We can yell louder if that's what feels good. We can not yell at all. We can talk really quietly in a whisper and see if that changes things. We can walk away. We can call someone else to come in. Regardless, we are at choice if we return to our bodies and we figure out what we need in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I would just add to that and say that a lot of times what I see is that in the moment when this stuff is happening, we feel terrible and we try to fix that by taking action. And when we're doing this not so consciously, this may lead us to take actions that don't actually serve our ultimate goals in the situation, because we may not know what the hell our ultimate goals in the situation are.
Yeah.
If we're committed to a relationship or we're committed to being a good lover or we're committed to doing anything in theory, because whatever, we may do things that aren't really in alignment with what's truest for us.
Sure.
And we may need to step back from these kinds of situations and go, wait a minute, I felt terrible in that situation. And this is what I did. And I don't really feel great about what I did, but I don't know what else to do. And so that's when we have the chance to say, well, what do I really want? Like, what did I want in that moment? What did I think I was pursuing in that moment? And is that really what I want to pursue?
Right. And how do I want to engage? How am I going to choose to engage in the future? That didn't work for me to engage that way.
Yeah.
I realized I was coming from fear or from a past trauma or a story that you don't like me or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And now with new information, how do I want to engage?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Like yeah. Right. And, the interesting thing that I sometimes see is that when people see that they have a choice, they're like, but if I act in alignment with what's right for me, I might lose this relationship, or this person might not think I'm a good lover, or not sexy, or not adventurous in bed or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
To name just a couple of examples.
That's huge. That's huge. So many of us do that. How much can I negate myself and my needs in order to remain in this relationship?
Yeah.
To what degree can I compromise myself and still be with this person?
Yeah.
People who come to me for my course, they're very particular. They come and they say, I know that I can't put myself second anymore. I am clear that I might lose this relationship, but I cannot lose my relationship with myself. They come with that clear definition of, I have to choose me first. And I love that. That's exactly what I want to work with. Yes, you choose you first. And that might mean you lose this relationship. And that's hard. And I get that's a big step. Yeah. But either way, losing you is not the answer.
Right. Right. For sure.
I love that you said that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing I would add is, sometimes we do lose the relationship, and that's sad. or whatever in the short term. But in the long term, what this means is that we're more available to engage in relationships that are more aligned with who we truly are.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. If you get stronger and more aligned with who you are, you're going to attract someone that matches to that.
Yeah.
That is a match to that. If you're not quite there, if you waver a bit, if maybe like that's okay if you don't really do the thing you feel like you need to do, I don't really need to have that career. I guess I can have kids, or I guess I can not have kids, or things like this. It's not going to work for you in the long run, ever. You're going to feel now or later, or all of the above, you're going to feel the effects of not honoring yourself.
Yeah, totally.
Always.
Totally.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, that I like to tell people is sometimes when you start to, I was about to say reclaim or claim, but I think there are other words we could use too. When you start to get a clearer sense of what your boundaries are, and when you start to, again, I was about to say enforce, but I don't know if that's the only word we have to use here. When you start to act on those in your relationship, it doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship will dissolve. It can be great.
It
right?
can strengthen for sure and fortify.
Yeah. And, this is kind of like a riff off of the good old Marianne Williamson poem. When we, when we let our own light shine, we give other people permission to do the same. But when we start to change how we relate to our own boundaries, we give other people an example of what they can do for themselves.
Exactly.
And when everybody takes better care of their own stuff in a relationship, the whole thing gets better, or it becomes easier to leave without it being like, you did this to me, like you made this bad, or it's your fault that I feel this way, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. We can palpably feel the difference when people are strong in their boundaries, when people understand themselves and are strong and aligned with themselves. That's palpable. We tend to feel, my experience, safer around those people. We tend to feel more like relaxed and at ease. We're not trying to get something from them. They're not trying to manipulate something from us. Like they are themselves. They are whole and complete, and they're just an person to engage with in this moment. It's definitely a different feeling when people are aligned with themselves and in integrity with themselves.
Right.
It does give people permission. It does radiate in the world to show like, this is what this could look like. You can just be you, period.
Right. Totally. And to that effect, I want to point out that when we show other people how to deal with all of the craziness that goes on in the world, when we show other people how to deal with other people's chaos without responding in kind, I mean, what's more powerful than that? I don't really know. Right? When we show other people that it is possible to deal with so-called bad behavior or unconscious behavior from a place of steadiness and calm, where we can say, this is not okay with me, without freaking out, everyone gets clearer and stronger.
Yeah. Yep. And we all have trauma to heal in a way for that.
Yes. And people are assholes because they suffer, and we all do stuff that isn't cool sometimes.
I think a huge piece of all of this, if not the piece of all of this, is regulating our own nervous system.
Yes.
How do we regulate our nervous system? And how do we do that reliably? Each of my coaching sessions start with a parasympathetic mode activating breathing exercise. And I ask people to do that at least 3 times a day. Train your body to know that you're relaxed and you're calm and you're safe in the world. And like the saber-toothed tiger is not coming. Right. Because we're in fight or flight so much and we don't even realize it.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that's amazing. And the piece of that I do with clients is teach them to understand that their thinking generates their feelings, and that when we can learn how to manage our minds a little more effectively, our feeling state changes. And when we can learn how to tolerate emotional discomfort instead of reacting to it, things change. Right. But of course, physical practices matter so much in that process.
Well, for the emotional discomfort, you got to be with it. It doesn't feel good.
Right.
And can you be there and be okay if it's heavy and sad?
Yeah.
Right. Or whatever is up at the moment.
Yeah. Heavy and sad, or like loud and fierce and blah. Right?
Yep.
Let's talk about how we communicate our boundaries to other people or not communicate our
Mhm.
boundaries to other people.
Yeah.
Can you share?
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, the how is big. Are you saying like when or
Give us
when
an
we do? Okay.
example of when you think it's important to communicate a boundary and when it might not be necessary to communicate a
Perfect.
boundary.
Yeah, it's important to communicate a boundary if you're wanting to deepen connection with a
Hmm.
person or to be understood, to have more clarity in that situation. If if it is not a situation that you want to deepen connection with, you don't have to share with the grocery store clerk what your deepest boundaries are, what's true for you. Like you don't need to explain to everybody what's happening for you internally, why you need to make the decisions you made, what your history is to bring you to this point.
Yeah.
um, if you want to be understood and if you're working with someone to have more intimacy, then you need to share those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I would add to that, like, let's say you're in a relationship and the two of you have been together for a while and you've developed some patterns together and you've decided that you don't want to participate in certain patterns anymore. You may want to say, like, let's say you're getting into an old familiar argument and somebody's kind of like lobbing jabs at you. You might want to say, look, I'm not going to participate in this kind of a conversation anymore. When you say X, Y, or Z, like, that's when I'm going to decide to just leave this conversation. Right.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Sometimes people will be like, well, why? Or like, well, you shouldn't do that. And that's when you don't have to say a damn thing.
Mm-mm. No, thank you. I was going to get back into this. We do not need to justify our
Right.
boundaries. You
Right.
need to communicate that it's a yes or a no.
Yeah.
If I don't want to have sex with you right now, I don't want to have sex with you right now.
Yeah.
I may or may not know why.
Right.
I may or may not have a reason why. If
Right.
you're demanding a reason of me, my
Right.
brain will find one that may or may not fit.
Sure. Yeah.
And it creates more layers to work through. What's true is it's a no for me to have sex right now.
Yeah. When we're clear in what our boundaries are and when we know that it's okay for us to have whatever boundaries we decide to have, then we know we don't have to explain anything.
Hmm.
We know we don't have to say, I have a headache. This is why it's
Hmm.
okay for me to not want to have sex right now or whatever
Hmm.
it is.
And
Right.
when our boundaries are heard and respected without justification, that creates an immense amount of safety.
Sure. Oh,
There's
yeah.
so much safety provided when you can just say no.
Right. Right.
And
And on the other hand, sometimes people don't respect our boundaries. And what do we do then?
mhm, mhm.
Right.
Oh, it's hard. It's so hard sometimes. It depends on where your state of being is in the moment of how you handle that. If someone is pushing up against your boundary, so often we cave. So often we're like, okay, fine. Okay,
Right.
fine. I'll have sex. I don't want to fight. You know, um, I talk a lot about our willpower being a finite resource.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
how important self care is, because if you don't have the willpower to stick up for your boundary, you're not going to.
Right. Right.
If you're depleted in any way because you're stressed, because you're tired, because whatever is going on in your life, like you're gonna eat the cookie. You're gonna say, "Sure, fine, I'll have sex because I don't want to fight about it."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, self care and maintaining your homeostasis, maintaining your balance of having a high level of energy, not living in a world of go, 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 do, deplete yourself as much as you can while still surviving
Right.
is not how you maintain healthy boundaries.
Right. 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 I agree with all of that. And I would add to that, like being really clear that we're allowed to have boundaries, whatever they may be,
Hmm.
and B, that our certainty is what matters. We can't depend on other people to be like, yay, you have boundaries. That's so great. Like, I'm going to give you applause for that in order for us to feel sure of them.
Right. Right. But once you get in the practice, silver lining, once you get in the practice of honoring yourself,
Mhm.
it feels really good.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
feel strong. You get this, you feel your power more. You feel your sense of who you are more. And it gets it gets less and less enticing to give that up
Yeah.
for any reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of what we begin to see when we get in the habit of setting our boundaries and honoring our own boundaries is that other people's behavior doesn't really mean anything about us. It's about them. And we can have our boundaries without our boundaries being indictments of other people and their behavior. Right?
That's a very important thing to understand about everybody, is their boundaries have nothing to do with you.
Right.
My boundaries have everything to do with me. They really have nothing to do with you.
Right. Right.
It's about me and who I am in this moment and what I'm trying to maintain, the health that I'm trying to stay up on. It doesn't really matter what's outside of that to a degree. So we need to respect that when other people say, no, I don't want to go out with you tonight, or no, I don't want to have sex with you. It doesn't mean you're a bad partner, or you're not sexy, or you're undesirable, or any of the above. It means, no, they don't want to have sex with you.
Right. Right.
Maybe a conversation needs to come up later if there's a pattern.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, definitely. The thing with that, I think, and this is like a whole different conversation, so I don't want to send us too far down this path, but I think so often when people don't give us what we want, we think there's something wrong with us.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And that's a whole other ball of wax.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the difference between boundaries and requests and boundaries and ultimatums. Right.
Yeah. I'm thick in this right now in a personal scenario.
Oh,
It feels juicy.
do you want to share it? You don't have to.
In vague terms. Yeah.
Sure.
Well,
Let's hear it.
Well, just to answer the question, a request is just a request. I will ask of you, will you do this? Are you open to doing this? Is it okay for you to be compassionate to me in this way and change your behavior in a way? I'm asking, and my ask is not, I'm not depending on their answer. Their answer could be, yes, I would love to turn the music down because it's too loud for you. Or it could be, no, this is the volume I need to listen to it on. In that case, I get to change me.
Yeah.
I get to remove myself. I get to put in earplugs. I get whatever.
Yeah.
The request is simply a request, and my boundary doesn't change based on that answer. Ultimatums, I feel like this is hard. This is tricky, and I think there's gonna be some pushback on this, and that's fine. I feel like ultimatums are when you put your boundary on someone else. You are not able to do X, Y, and Z, so I can feel better. And we do that all the time in relationships.
Yeah.
You are not able to sleep with anybody else because I don't feel okay with that. So it's very common. It's very accepted in our society to have ultimatums.
Right.
And I think it doesn't work. In my experience, I really think it doesn't work. And I think the answer is me telling you I'm not okay with you sleeping with somebody else. That doesn't work for me. But I'm not telling you can't. If you do, you're in charge of your body. If you do go have sex with someone else, I change what I do with that. I remove myself from the situation. I take care of my body. I make sure there's testing, whatever I need to do to feel okay with my boundaries. But I'm not going to tell you what to do with your body. That doesn't work for me.
Yeah. I think all of this is really interesting territory. And as I was thinking about this, I realized that I don't necessarily know what my definition of an ultimatum is, but what I see is that people get boundaries and requests and ultimatums really confused.
Right.
But here's the thing. I think in many committed relationships where two people decide that they want to be together, there are a lot of compromises that people need to make, right? And that's okay. The question is, what compromises do we make? And I don't want to get too far into compromises here, but how do we make them? Where are we making requests versus demands or ultimatums? Like, it's one thing to say, like, look, if I'm going to be in this relationship, I want it to be monogamous. Like, are you down for that? Right? Like, do you agree to doing that? Right. And having somebody say yes or no, rather than saying, if you're going to be with me, you can't do this, even though you want to. Right. That's different.
Very different.
Right. And there's a difference between saying, like, I want you to take the trash out every week, or like, I want you to do this chore, and saying, well, since you didn't do this, I'm going to feel terrible. Or since you didn't do this, like we can't be in a relationship anymore. Right.
Yep.
Right. And all this is getting a little blurry, but even so, I think it's just really important to remember that the person we're holding hostage, first and foremost, when we get into slippery thinking here, is ourselves. Right.
A boundary is within you. You house all of your boundaries. And so if your boundary looks like it is a boundary for me, for you to not take the trash out.
Right. Right. That's
not a boundary.
Right.
That's absolutely not a boundary.
Right.
That is not
Exactly.
within me. That is not within my control.
Yeah.
I can have a boundary that I want to live in a clean home that doesn't smell like garbage. That could be my boundary. And if my partner's not taking the trash out, then there's all sorts of other things I can do.
Yeah.
And get creative, including requests, but I cannot put my boundary on them.
Right. Right.
It's mine.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Here is one thing that I want to make sure we talk about before we wrap up today. And that is enforcing our boundaries. Right. Do you want to say anything about that?
So enforcing is such a yang term, like the yang and the yang.
True.
Enforcing is so young. It's such a power. And I feel like boundaries are very yin. It is this quiet clarity of, this is a no for me. This doesn't work for me. And when you are strong in your fortitude with yourself, it's clear and it's easy in a sense. It's easy because it's clear that this doesn't work and I'm going to do something different. I don't need to yell at you about it. I don't need to be mad at you about it. I like the quote of like, learn to be done, not mad, not angry, just done.
I love it. Learn to be done, not angry, not mad, just done.
I don't know who to attribute that to.
That's someone good.
Someone wonderful, I'm sure, said that. But I don't need to enforce it. I don't need to get mad at you for what I think was cheating. I feel a certain way. I feel disrespected. I have my sense of self, and I know this doesn't work for me. So I separate myself in a way. I return to myself. And maybe that's just for a time. Maybe that's for a few weeks where I go into a meditation and I like really get clear on what is true. And I could come back and communicate that. But I guess my answer here is, I don't know if we enforce boundaries. I don't know if there's a push.
Right. I don't think enforcing has to entail push.
Okay.
I think enforcing may just mean that we act on what we say we're going to act on. And so I usually work with people who are doing the cheating, but I also work with people who have been cheated on. And a big thing that I hear over and over again was, they did this and they shouldn't have done it. And what I always say to that is, well, your power is in what you're going to do. If you decide that you don't want to be in a relationship with someone who cheats, it's up to you to do something about that.
Right.
Exactly. And I would say that the first stage of doing anything is always that quiet knowing, the resolve for yourself. And you can have that no matter what kind of action you take or don't take. But if you're going to take action, you have to have that resolve. And if you want to change your circumstances, if you want to be in a different relationship, you have to be willing to take that action.
Right.
And that can be hard, even when you have the resolve.
Absolutely. Right? It's definitely hard. Yeah. The greatest strength needs to be in that resolve. You need to have more strength and more power in your relationship with yourself, your connection, your love, your commitment to yourself needs to be stronger than to anything outside of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And for some people, that is a cosmic shift to make, right? Yeah. And it sometimes seems so much easier to rail against the world or the universe or other people for doing whatever they've done or for things being the way they are, rather than to say, okay, this has happened. What am I going to do?
Well, feel those feelings, scream it out. If the outside needs to be expressed in that way, then you scream it out. But the return is to the self.
Right.
You are the only relationship that you have your entire life. It's the only one, the one with you and with your body, with your form. This is what you have for this life. That has to be your number one. And most of us aren't there.
No.
Most of us aren't there. And that's like you said, a massive cosmic shift.
Right.
to orbit around your own center.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the other thing that you just said that I want to touch on that I think is so important is that we often think that when we have these really intense feelings that are related to someone else or something that someone else has done, we think that the appropriate thing to do is to direct our feelings to that person.
Mhm. No.
But we can express our feelings without directing them towards that person. And then we can decide intentionally, thoughtfully, how we want to engage with that person or disengage from that person.
Mhm.
Right.
I find that boundaries work a lot better when you feel your feelings on your own, when you process your feelings on your own, when you do the full, like Body Mind talks about this, the book we talked about earlier, as well as Burnout by Amelia and Emily Nagoski talks about going through the full cycle of emotions. You have to get through the entire process of it
Yep.
to get to the other end.
Yeah.
I find boundaries work a lot better if you do your full emotional cycle on your own. You get to the place where you're calm and centered in your knowing, in your truth, and you just communicate that really clearly.
Yeah.
Things work out a lot better.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. One last thing that I want to touch on that I think I thought about when we were talking about communicating boundaries versus not communicating boundaries. Sometimes there's really nothing we need to say, even when we are trying to build connection with someone.
True.
Right. And I think of that Ruth Bader Ginsburg quote. I think it goes something like, in every marriage, it helps to sometimes be a little deaf. And I think this applies not just to marriages, but to any kind of romantic relationship, but also other relationships too. Sometimes people are just going to engage in some nonsense because we're humans and we do that. And sometimes we don't have to say anything to them about it not being okay with us. Sometimes we can just smile and walk away and let them have their moment and let them just understand that we're not participating. Right?
Yes. That works when we are connected with ourselves. That doesn't work when we are connected with them and are requiring someone else to show up in a certain way for us to be okay.
Totally. Absolutely.
So
100%. I mean, I would say that just to kind of give folks some common themes to take away with, a boundary isn't a boundary unless you're sure of it for yourself. Right? If you're not connected to yourself and what's true for you, then whatever it is you think you're doing may not count as a boundary at all.
Right. I think that's what a boundary is. For me, that is the definition, is what you are sure of in yourself, what is true for you within you. That is the boundary.
Right. And I think I said this earlier. I hope I did. So hopefully I'm reiterating. But the external manifestation of it is what you do about it. Right.
Exactly.
Which may be communicating something to someone, or it may be not. Sometimes you just vote with your feet.
Exactly. You just change your behaviors.
Yeah.
And you don't even need to say anything about it.
Right.
You just no longer engage in A, B, or C.
Right. Exactly. It's I like to use this metaphor. If you've say been a heavy drinker and then you have all these friends that really like to drink and then you stop drinking and you're like, well, I just don't want to be around people when they're drunk anymore because I'm just done. I've had enough. Thanks. Nothing wrong with it, but I'm done with that. When your drunk friends call you, you don't have to answer the phone. It's really that simple.
Right.
Or if you want to, you can tell them hey, I'm just not going to talk to you when you're drunk. Call me tomorrow when you sober up or not. If they invite you to a party, you can go if you want to and leave when you start to think it gets too much, or you can just say, no, I'm not going to come.
Right.
But the point for you is that you're sure that you're just done with that.
Right.
There's this much of it that you're willing to engage in or not. And that's it. And that's all.
That's how you know you've gone through your full process, is when you're just done.
Right.
When you're not mad, when you're not trying to manipulate someone to change, when you're not trying to do anything, you're just done.
Yeah.
I'm a non-drinker. I don't like alcohol. I don't like being around it. I have 1,000 reasons. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
My partner drinks and it's fine. I'm going to separate myself. I don't at any point think that they should stop drinking. I don't think that I should control their behavior and that they should do something different or not go to the bar or not be with their friends.
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
I don't want to be around it. If that's what you want to do, I'm going to go do something else.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm solid enough in myself that I don't have to require them to show up in a certain way.
Right.
You are not required to stop drinking so I can be comfortable.
Right.
I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to go swim
Right.
in the river. Like,
Right. Right. But, and I'm just going to add this here as an example. I'm not saying this is true for you. You also might say, look, if we're going to have sex, like I'm not down with like beer breath. Like I'm just not interested. I just don't like it. Not that it's bad, but I'm just like, ew, yuck. I just don't like that. Right.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not open to it. It grosses me out. And I don't want to have sex where I'm grossed out.
Right. And it's not a judgment. It's not like I'm saying you are unattractive. It's like, I'm just not into this flavor.
Yeah.
Literally.
Totally. Yes. It's not my flavor.
Yeah.
Exactly. The whole point is work on your relationship with yourself, strengthen who you are with you. And so life gets a lot easier.
Right.
I don't have to control other people.
Right.
I'm in charge of me. That's a lot. That's enough.
So
That's
true.
a lot.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, what I always say to my clients is when we learn how to recognize what we have the power to control, and when we start to actively take responsibility for that, life gets a whole lot simpler and a whole lot better. And when we're there, we can develop a totally different relationship to the many things we don't have the power to control.
Absolutely. Very wise. Yeah. I love that a lot. Mm-hmm.
All right, Melissa, on that note, why don't we wrap it up for today? Would you tell everyone where they can find you? Tell them what your boundaries course is all about, et cetera.
Thank you. I kept mentioning I'm not trying to do all sorts of shameless plugs, but
no,
it's
so good.
into
It's your thing.
I spent all year writing this course. It's like the foundational work of my online platform that I'm starting to build since COVID stuff. I'm merging my stuff from in-person to online curriculum. And the boundary course is the first one I did. It's big and beautiful and in-depth. And you can find everything on highersexeducation.com, HIGHER, sexeducation.com. So everything's on there and the course is on there. I'm working on a new course on touch. I've been a massage therapist forever and did
oh my God, yeah,
so much touch. So my next course is on touch and how to communicate your needs, understanding your own needs, and how to use that in the world, the internal and the external, same kind of framework, but in regards to touch. So anyway, and then one-on-one coaching also available. Just email me at highersexeducation@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. All those links are on the website. So you can just go to the website for everything.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you. This has been fantastic.
Cool. Well, thanks to everyone for listening. If you have enjoyed what you've heard, I hope you'll head on over to iTunes to rate and review the show. Have an amazing week. I will talk to you next time. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me with Dr. Marie Murphy. Make sure to click subscribe to get updates on our latest episodes.